the hadal snailfish. On August 26, 2023, a camera trap deployed by the University of Western Australia in the Ogasawara Trench off the coast of Japan captured footage of a fish at a depth of 8,336 meters. It was a snailfish, a species called Pseudolaparis belyaevi. It held the record as the deepest fish ever filmed. Then it was beaten. Earlier in the same expedition, a different snailfish was recorded at 8,336 meters in the same trench. These are not large animals. They measure between 20 and 30 centimeters, roughly the size of a handgun. They are pale, almost translucent. Their skin has the soft, gelatinous quality of something that has never needed to be hard. There are no predators down there to defend against, so they never evolved armor. What they evolved instead is far more interesting and far more unsettling. Their cells are saturated with a compound called trimethylamine oxide, TMAO. At extreme pressure, the molecular structure of proteins begins to break down. TMAO prevents this. It acts as a pressure stabilizer at the cellular level, keeping enzymes functional in conditions that would denature the biologies of virtually every other vertebrate on Earth. This means that as you go deeper, snailfish accumulate more TMAO. There is a theoretical ceiling, a depth at which even TMAO cannot compensate for the pressure. Scientists have calculated that ceiling at approximately 8,400 meters. The snailfish currently hold the record at 8,336 meters. They are 64 meters from the edge of what biology says is possible, and they are thriving right at that edge in ways that suggest the ceiling might be wrong. The giant isopod. If you took a common pill bug, the small gray creature that rolls into a ball when you touch it, and scaled it up to the size of a large dog, you would have something close to a giant isopod. Bathynomus giganteus reaches lengths of up to 76 centimeters and can weigh over 1 kilogram. It is a crustacean, a relative of crabs, shrimp, and the pill bugs in your garden, and it lives in the deep Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans at depths between 150 and 2,500 meters, right at the edge of the hadal zone. The physical appearance alone is enough to trigger a reaction most people cannot suppress. 7 pairs of legs, 14 body segments, 2 pairs of antennae, compound eyes that are large, reflective, and fixed, meaning it cannot look away from you even if it wanted to. But here is what makes the giant isopod genuinely disturbing. It is a scavenger with almost supernatural patience. A whale fall, the carcass of a dead whale that sinks to the ocean floor, can sustain a giant isopod population for years. They have been documented going without food for over 5 years in captivity. One individual at Toba Aquarium in Japan went 3 years without eating and appeared entirely unaffected. When food does arrive, they eat with shocking aggression. Footage from baited cameras shows them swarming carcasses in groups of dozens, consuming flesh with the methodical efficiency of an animal that has evolved over 300 million years to process carrion in total darkness. 300 million years. That is older than the dinosaurs, older than the first mammals, older than the first trees. The giant isopod's body plan has not changed significantly since the Carnivorous period. Whatever pressures drive evolution in other animals, they have not applied to this creature. It found a design that worked and has maintained it for longer than almost any other complex animal on Earth, the frilled shark. There are animals in the deep ocean that are called living fossils. The frilled shark is not like those animals. Calling it a living fossil understates what it actually is. Chlamydocelicus anguineus has a fossil record extending back approximately 80 million years. Its body plan, its tooth structure, its jaw mechanics are nearly identical to specimens found in Cretaceous-era marine deposits. It was hunting in the deep ocean when Tyrannosaurus rex was alive on land. It outlasted the asteroid impact, It outlasted every mass extinction event of the last 80 million years. And it did this by staying in the deep. Frilled sharks inhabit depths between 100 and 1,500 meters, occasionally surfacing in shallower water when sick or dying, which is how most observations of living specimens occur. The morphology is genuinely alien. The body is eel-like, reaching up to 2 meters in length. The skin is brown-gray and smooth. The 6 pairs of gill slits, which give it the name frilled shark, extend in frilled edges around the neck, giving the head a dramatically wider profile than the body. But the mouth is the detail that stays with you. The frilled shark has approximately 300 teeth arranged in 25 rows. Each tooth is trident-shaped, 3 points projecting forward. They are designed not to slice but to trap. Once prey enters that mouth, the geometry of the teeth makes escape nearly impossible. The frilled shark's jaw can open to approximately 90 degrees, far wider than most sharks. It can take prey up to half its own body length. It is thought to ambush prey from below, bending its body into an S shape before striking at speed. The gestation period is estimated at 3.5 years, the longest of any vertebrate currently known. This means a frilled shark alive today may have been gestating when Barack Obama was in his first term as U.S. president. The population size, the distribution, the behavioral range are essentially unknown. We know it exists because specimens wash up dead or appear briefly in camera traps. We know almost nothing else. The fangtooth fish. The common fangtooth, Anaplogaster cornuta, holds a specific record in marine biology that is not the kind of record you want to hold. It has the largest teeth relative to body size of any fish in the ocean. That is not an exaggeration or an approximation. It is a verified biological measurement. The fish reaches a maximum length of about 16 centimeters, smaller than most human hands. Its fangs are so large that when the jaw closes, the lower fangs slide into sheaths on either side of the brain to prevent the fish from impaling its own skull. Read that again. Its teeth are so large that its skull had to evolve special pockets to accommodate them when its mouth is closed. The eyes are small and sit high on the head. The body is dark brown to black, almost completely light absorbent. The scales have a rough, plate-like texture. The overall visual impression is of something that was designed by something angry. Fangtooths live between 200 and 5,000 meters, spanning an enormous depth range. They migrate vertically at night, rising toward the surface to hunt, then descending again before dawn. This means they are not confined to the abyss. They move through the water column with a regularity that suggests active predatory strategy rather than passive opportunism. Their diet consists primarily of crustaceans and smaller fish. But here is the detail that most accounts skip. Juvenile fangtooths look almost nothing like the adults. They are pale, spiny, and so morphologically different from mature specimens that scientists initially classified them as a separate species. The transformation they undergo during development from the larval form to the adult is one of the most dramatic in any marine fish. They do not just grow, they rebuild. And the end product is something that hunts in total darkness with the largest teeth its body can physically carry, the goblin shark. In 1898, a Japanese fisherman hauled up a creature near Yokohama that had never been seen by Western science. It was sent to the American naturalist David Starr Jordan, who named it Mitsukurina austoni in honor of the Japanese marine biologist Kakichi Mitsukuri. Jordan described it in print as one of the most extraordinary fishes known. That description has held. The goblin shark lives at depths between 200 and 1,300 meters, with most confirmed specimens recovered from the Pacific. It reaches roughly 4 meters in length. The body is soft and flabby, an adaptation to deep water pressure. The skin is pinkish gray, translucent enough that the blood vessels beneath give the living animal a pinkish tinge that fades rapidly after death, which is why most photographs show a gray or white specimen. The snout is elongated and flat, extending well beyond the jaw like a paddle. This is not decoration. The snout is covered in electroreceptive organs, the ampullae of Lorenzini, that detect the electrical fields produced by living prey in complete darkness. The goblin shark effectively sees with its face, but the jaws. The jaw mechanism is why this animal generates the response it does in everyone who sees it move. The goblin shark has a protrusible jaw. When it detects prey, its jaw physically launches forward from the skull, projecting outward in a slingshot motion that covers a distance of up to 3.5% of the shark's total body length in a fraction of a second. The teeth, which are needle-thin and built to grip rather than cut, then seize the prey before the jaw retracts. This mechanism is not unique to goblin sharks. Several shark species have some degree of jaw protrusion, but no species does it with the speed or the dramatic extension of the goblin shark. Video footage of this mechanism, first captured clearly in 2008, does not prepare you. The jaw comes out of nowhere. One frame, it is not there. The next frame, it is fully extended. It is one of the fastest feeding strikes of any vertebrate, and it happens in complete darkness at a depth where no sunlight has ever reached. The giant squid. In 1853, the Danish naturalist Japetus Steenstrup formally described Architeuthis ducks based on a beak recovered from a sperm whale's stomach. For the next 150 years, science knew the giant squid existed primarily through these indirect sources: beaks in stomachs, tentacle fragments in nets. Circular sucker scars on whale skin, each scar the mark of a sucker that can measure up to 5 centimeters in diameter, ringed with serrated edges like a saw blade. Live giant squid were not photographed until 2004, when Tsunemi Kubadera and Kyoichi Mori deployed a baited camera in the North Pacific and retrieved footage that made international news. Not because the animal was unexpected. It had been in the scientific record for a century and a half, but because seeing something move is categorically different from reading about it. The giant squid reaches confirmed lengths of 13 meters for females. Unconfirmed reports from sperm whale stomach contents suggest larger animals. The eyes are the largest of any animal alive, reaching 30 centimeters in diameter, roughly the size of a dinner plate. They evolved to this size for a specific reason. At depth, the only light is bioluminescent. Large eyes gather more of that faint, biological light. The giant squid uses those eyes to detect the bioluminescent flashes that sperm whales produce when moving through the water, giving it the only advance warning it gets before the largest predator on Earth arrives. The tentacles are tipped with suckers lined with serrated chitin rings. Prey caught in those tentacles does not escape. Sperm whales carry the scars of these encounters, evidence that giant squid fight back against a 9-meter predator and sometimes win. We still do not know where giant squid breed. We have never observed spawning behavior. We do not know how long they live. The most studied invertebrate mystery in the ocean remains mostly a mystery: the vampire squid. The name is a translation of its Latin classification. Vampiroteuthis infernalis means vampire squid from hell. It was named in 1903 by Carl Chun, a German zoologist, who encountered a specimen recovered from the Atlantic and described it with language that was uncharacteristically dramatic for the scientific literature of the period. What Chun was looking at was something that does not fit cleanly into any known category. The vampire squid is not a squid. It is not an octopus. It is the sole surviving member of an entirely separate order, Vampiromorphidae, which split from the common ancestor of modern squids and octopuses approximately 300 million years ago. It is, in the most accurate sense, a living branch of evolutionary history that has no close relatives alive today. It reaches about 30 centimeters in total length. The body is dark red to black. The 8 arms are connected by a webbing of skin that gives the animal a cloak-like appearance when the arms are extended, exactly what Chun found disturbing enough to name it after a vampire. The eyes are proportionally the largest of any animal on Earth relative to body size. They are deep blue in life. The vampire squid lives in the oxygen minimum zone, the layer of ocean water, typically between 600 and 900 meters, where oxygen levels drop to near zero. Almost nothing else can survive here. The vampire squid evolved to do exactly that. Its blood contains a hemocyanin molecule with an extraordinary oxygen affinity, allowing it to extract usable oxygen from water that would suffocate every other complex animal in the ocean. This is not predation territory. The oxygen minimum zone has almost no prey. The vampire squid eats marine snow, the slow drift of organic particles, dead cells, fecal matter, and bacterial aggregates that fall continuously from the surface. It extends long filamentous arms to collect this material and feeds on it. A 300 million year old evolutionary lineage survived to the present day by retreating to the most inhospitable water in the ocean and eating the ocean's garbage. The biological elegance of that strategy is difficult to overstate. The barreleye fish. Macropinna microstoma has a transparent head, not translucent, transparent. The entire upper portion of the skull is a fluid-filled dome of clear tissue through which you can see the brain and the eyes directly. The eyes themselves are tubular, pointing upward inside the dome like 2 glowing green cylinders. They track moving targets above the fish, scanning for the silhouettes of prey against the faint light filtering down from above. For decades, scientists assumed the barreleye could only look upward. Then in 2009's Robison, Bruce Ra and Kim Reisenbichler of the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute published video footage that changed the understanding of the animal entirely. The fish could rotate its eyes, not slightly. The tubes could swing from pointing straight up to pointing straight forward, giving the barreleye a full forward field of vision while also retaining the capacity to look directly upward. This had gone undetected for nearly a century because every specimen recovered by net trawling arrived at the surface with the transparent dome, collapsed and the eyes in a fixed position. The real anatomy was invisible in dead specimens. The barreleye lives between 400 and 2,500 meters in the mesopelagic and bathypelagic zones. It feeds on small crustaceans and the tentacles of siphonophores, colonial organisms that can extend across hundreds of meters of water. The fish positions itself below a siphonophore and steals food from it. This is a feeding strategy that requires precise spatial awareness and very deliberate movement in 3 dimensions. The transparent dome protects the eyes from the nematocysts, the stinging cells of the siphonophore's tentacles. The design is specific, functional, and evolved over millions of years to solve a very specific problem. And none of it was visible until we sent a camera capable of observing it alive in its actual environment, which raises the obvious question of how many other animals have anatomical systems we have completely misunderstood because the only specimens we examined were dead. The Pacific viperfish. Scioliotis makuni is a fish that appears to have been designed to maximize the psychological impact of being in total darkness. The body is roughly 30 centimeters long, silver, and iridescent. The dorsal fin extends into a long filament that ends in a photophore, a light-producing organ dangling above the head like a lure. But it is the teeth that define this animal. The viperfish has the largest teeth relative to head size of any known fish. They are transparent, entirely clear, like glass rods set into the jaw. They are so long that the viperfish cannot close its mouth fully. When swimming, the lower fangs protrude outside the jaw and curve back toward the body. The tip of each fang extends past the eye socket when the mouth is fully open. When the viperfish strikes, the jaw drops in a motion that takes roughly 10 milliseconds, opening to nearly a 90-degree angle. The transparent teeth are not a design coincidence. In the bioluminescent deep sea, any opaque material in the mouth would be visible to prey. Transparent teeth effectively disappear in low light. A prey animal approaching the glowing lure would have no visible indication that teeth were coming until the jaw was already closed around it. The viperfish migrates vertically, spending daylight hours at depths between 200 and 5,000 meters and rising to 100 meters at night to hunt. This means it traverses a pressure range that would kill most organisms multiple times per day. Its physiology adapts to these transitions seamlessly. The swim bladder is absent, eliminating the gas-filled organ that would rupture under pressure changes. The skeleton is lightweight and flexible. The muscles are adapted for rapid short bursts rather than sustained swimming. It is built entirely around the moment of the strike. Everything else about its biology is secondary to that single function. The hadal amphipod. This is where it gets genuinely disturbing, because the hadal amphipod is not a monster by appearance. It looks like a shrimp. A pale, elongated crustacean measuring between 2 and 10 centimeters. It swarms in the deepest trenches on Earth in numbers that no one anticipated, and for reasons that nobody has fully explained. When the first baited landers were deployed in the Mariana Trench in the 1990s, the cameras sent back footage that researchers described as overwhelming. Tens of thousands of amphipods swarming a bait source within hours. The density was comparable to swarms of insects, not the sparse, isolated encounters scientists expected at 11,000 meters. Hadal amphipods have since been found in every ocean trench sampled, from the Kermadec to the Puerto Rico Trench to the South Sandwich Trench. They are the dominant macrofaunal organisms in the hadal zone. They are why nothing stays dead at the bottom of the ocean. But here is the detail that should concern you. Chemical analysis of hadal amphipods collected from the Mariana Trench and published in a 2017 paper in Nature Ecology and Evolution found persistent organic pollutants in their tissue at concentrations higher than in crustaceans from the most heavily polluted coastal rivers in China. Polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, banned industrial chemicals that were produced primarily between the 1930s and 1970s. They entered the ocean through industrial discharge and have been accumulating through the food chain ever since. Somehow they reached the deepest point on Earth and concentrated in the tissue of animals that have never been close to a factory or a coastline. The mechanism is the marine snow pathway. Contaminated organic particles fall from the surface and accumulate at depth. Amphipods consume them. The pollutants concentrate. The deepest, most isolated environment on the planet carries the chemical signature of mid-20th century industrial production. And those amphipods carry it in their bodies at concentrations that would be regulated as hazardous waste if found in a coastal fishery. The hadal zone is not pristine wilderness. It is a chemical sink for everything humanity has put into the ocean for the last 100 years. Whatever else lives down there is living in that.